Welcome to the Connected Enterprise Podcast. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision33, and my guest today is Chris Malta. Chris is an experienced entrepreneurial businessman for many, many years, lots of experience in e-commerce. And it is said about him that he's possibly the only person left who will tell you the entire truth about e-commerce, whether you like it or not. So that's why I have him here today. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your business these days, and be sure to mention to us about your new book.
Thanks, Carl. And yes, unfortunately, the truth is not always the prettiest thing that people hear, but they need to hear it, right? So I have been in e-commerce for a little bit over 30 years now. I actually started way back in 1992 when the only thing you could do was market through news groups, believe it or not. That was it. But yeah, I've done everything you can do. Worked with, very, very high up people in all different kinds of companies, Amazon, eBay, UPS, and so on. But yeah, this is my thing. I've been doing it for 30 years and I love doing it. So the new book that I wanted to mention, because it's so important that people get real information and not be fooled as they are all the time, is eBiz Scams Revealed, which is on my website. It's chrismalta.com and it's free. It's just out there, hopefully helping people stay away from all the rabbit holes you can fall into in this business.
Yeah, you could spend a lot of money and not get a lot for it. That's for sure.
Most
I'm
of the
sure
people
that'll
I
be
talk
valuable.
to have done that.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, Chris, as you and I talked about the other day, a good percentage of small and medium-sized businesses have still yet to create an e-commerce site. Is e-commerce still relevant for those people that are so late to the party?
I don't think it's possible to be late to the party in that regard because so many people who are already at the party don't know what they're doing. Okay. You see about 97%, this is a failure rate statistic that we got a while back from Forrester, about 97% of e-commerce sites fail. And I think a lot of the reason that they fail is they don't have good information. They're relying on YouTube to figure out how to run an e-commerce business, or they're just relying on the big platforms that are selling them this, one size fits all, put something up quick and get on, be on your way kind of thing. So no, there's plenty of room in e-commerce. There always will be. I think everything is shifting that way. As we see from the statistics, year after year after year, the growth is amazing. So there's plenty of room. You just have to know what you're doing when you get there.
Yeah, for sure. So here's one of those first, you got to know what you're doing when you get there. If they want to begin, running an e-commerce site for their business, what do they need to do first?
It depends on whether we're talking about home-based or mid-sized businesses, and I think you're talking about the middle-sized to larger businesses. Is that right?
Yeah, mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, they have to take a look at the landscape. I mean, where are they? What do they produce? For example, there was a company that I worked with that makes only saw blades. That's what they do. They've been around for 100 years, right? And they make saw blades. So that one product, having that one product will allow them to work well with the search engines, because the search engines now look for sites that are authoritative on one thing and one thing only. So a company like that can focus on search engine optimization. They can focus on, natural content ranking in the search engines. Other companies that make everything from purple shoes to green widgets, they can't rank well in the search engines. So they're going to have to focus on a lot of paid advertising, unfortunately. But, one of the first things they need to do is put somebody in that business who knows or can learn how they need to launch and what they need to do with that site.
So one of the keys there is really hiring somebody or creating someone in the business. Maybe it's somebody you send to school for a while to learn the basics of e-commerce, so that you're not the victim of somebody who's just trying to sell you something. I take that's part of the formula for success.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was talking about when I referred to that company that makes saw blades. I've done this for a lot of companies. They had an internal employee who was familiar with online marketing, and they actually had me teach and mentor that person all the way through, start to finish, how to build the site, how to, we determined how everything needed to be done. We set it all up and got it running. So yeah, if you have someone in-house that you can do that with, be very careful if you're looking to hire somebody, because most of the people out there that you're going to hire have also learned from YouTube. Okay. And that's like learning how to become a surgeon by watching videos online. You
Right.
just,
Right.
this is a profession. It's not a hobby. It's retail marketing. So
Yeah.
you need to
So
be very careful.
you don't want to necessarily hire your 12-year-old nephew to do this job. Yeah.
No, and I've seen people do that. Maybe not
Uh,
12 years old, but close.
yeah, I have seen that as well. So those are a couple of good ideas for things they should do. What are, let's say the top 3 to 5 things they should not do?
First off, don't take anything for granted. Don't make any assumptions that you're just going to put up a website and it's going to work. This is one of the things that the big platforms tell you, and they tell this to everybody, whether it's a big company, a mid-sized company, or an individual, home-based business owner, is just get a free trial website, throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, and hope it sticks. What they're not telling you is that the website is actually the last thing that you do. There's a tremendous amount of research and development that has to come before the website goes up. So, I mean, the first thing you do is obviously, what do you sell? Now, in a mid-sized to large company, they know what they sell, but they might want to separate that out, because if they make, again, saw blades and maybe shoes and something else, or corporate divisions, they may want a specific website for each division. So you don't want to just grab a website and throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall. Again, I'm sorry. Again, the research is where I keep going back to, because it's market research, figuring out what you're selling. It's keyword research, which is figuring out how people search for what you sell. And people need to keep in mind that keywords are not created by the search engines. They are not an act of God. Keywords are the words and phrases that people use to describe what they're looking for. So they can be widely varied. Core keywords are going to surround the product very closely. Supersets of keywords are going to surround questions about the product. You have to know how people are looking for what you're selling. Then you have to know who your demographic is. If you don't understand who you're selling to, you can't present it properly to those people. You don't talk to people in their 60s the same way you talk to people in their 20s. And they don't respond to the same type of marketing. Younger groups, younger demographic groups look for more Spartan, more clean websites, less talk, a smaller, text to image ratio. The demographic can even determine what font you use on that website. So knowing the demographic is critical. Okay, knowing how to write content for the search engines is critical. And I don't want to get too far off into the weeds here, Carl, because I'll slow you down.
I
But
know.
there is a certain amount you need to learn about how to write for a search engine. You also need to learn, how to work with SEO. SEO is interesting because it becomes less and less important over time, since Google and now a couple of the other search engines, which don't really matter a lot. I mean, I think, maybe Bing has like 3 users left. Is that right? But Google with 95 to 97% of the search market. SEO is simply helping a search engine fill in the gaps that it doesn't understand yet. And being a heuristic algorithm, being a system that learns, deep learning artificial intelligence, they call it, since 2011, it starts to fill in its own gaps over the years when it's processing 30 billion searches, a day, right?
Right.
So the SEO becomes less and less important over time, but you still need to understand what gaps are there and what you need to fill in to show it where to look. Your graphics are important. You need to be able to present things the way that people need to see them. So all of that has to be done before the website goes up. So the biggest problem people have is just a rush to a website. That's not the way to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was probably just one big thing instead of 3 or 4 things.
No, I think that's good. Really, you need to know what you're doing before you start doing it. And so there's some research involved about a lot of things.
Yes.
That if you aren't already, you need to become an expert about what you sell, and really know your marketplace, know your customers, know your competitors. I mean, this is, to some degree, that part of it is a bit old school. There's nothing
Yeah.
new under the sun as it relates to that. But if you don't
Yeah.
know that stuff, then you're really hampered on the creativity side for sure.
And then if we're talking about a couple of other things that people make mistakes on, one of them is buying tools, SEO tools, sales funnel tools, email marketing tools. Google does not like to be fooled. Google has a whole web spam division that they developed in 2011. They developed the Penguin algorithm, the update, which says you people are not going to fool us anymore because there were so many black hat techniques that were fooling the search engine. They don't like it. So what they do when these people put out these tools that are supposed to make everything work magically, okay, there's unicorns and rainbows, right? It's all supposed to work magically. Just buy the tool and everything will be fine. Google buys those tools too. They get those tools, they reverse engineer them, they figure out how they work, and they block them in the algorithms.
Right.
Okay. They don't let them work. So don't waste your money and time on tools. Okay. It's just a ridiculous waste of time and money.
So you would say, I mean, that the search engines are sophisticated enough now that they really know what the truth is. And
yeah,
so,
it's right. It's an artificial intelligence. You know what I've seen over the last couple of months is pretty funny because a lot of the guys on YouTube now are coming out and talking about OpenAI and Chat GPT, which is, this. You're supposed to be able to have an artificial intelligence tool write your articles for you, write your content, write
yeah,
your marketing material for you. That's an AI, and it's a relatively new one, and it thinks it's going to go out there and fool the Google AI. Really? Google's AI can smell artificial intelligent, generated content a mile away.
yeah, yeah.
They can, and you can see it too. If you try talking to your iPhone. Okay, just when you're texting something like that, try talking to the iPhone. Words misspelled, commas out of place, right? This is an artificial intelligence. It doesn't mean it's a genius. Artificial intelligence are not nearly as smart as people are. The human factor in content creation is extremely important, and that's a huge mistake that people make too. And the other thing that people do is hire virtual assistants. You're
Yeah.
hiring somebody in the Philippines or in India or something like that, and you're saying, okay, write my content. All they're doing, you give them a keyword to write content on. They'll take that keyword, search it online, grab somebody else's article, throw it in an article spinner, which is a tool that'll generate 15 different versions of the article just by changing the words around. And then they'll send you one version back. And Google looks at that and says, are you kidding me? So virtual assistants are pushed all over the place. You don't need to do that. If you're running a business or running a website, you need to understand how it works, why
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, far better off if you have somebody on your own staff write a blog about how good your saw blades are once a month or once a week, than trying to spoof the system for sure. So
Yes.
because Google will know that that's a real article for
And
sure.
And they don't like it.
Yeah.
And when Google doesn't like something, it goes away.
Yeah, it does. So, Chris, you and I talked about this about a week ago. That for a lot of people, for instance, you teach them how to use Shopify. Why
Yes.
why is Shopify a good platform for e-commerce for lots of folks?
Shopify, in my opinion, is a good platform technically. One of the reasons that we like that platform is, let's put it this way, Google, which is always the search engine that we look to because of its, 95, 97%. Google does not like a web page that takes 15 lines of code to do something that you could do in 3 lines of code. And Shopify's platform is very sleek. It's very streamlined. It does it in 3 lines of code. So it's basically using HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript wrapped in just a wrapper that they call their liquid engine. The other platforms get very complicated. A lot of them use PHP, which is a very complex language. Anyway, we like using the technical side of Shopify, but in my personal opinion, we steer people away from the marketing side, as we do with all platforms, not just Shopify, because that's where they sell you all the tools and things that you really don't need. I think, Carl, most of these companies don't expect people to succeed with websites. So they feel that they need to sell them as many tools as possible before they realize they're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
That's how they make their money.
It makes sense that's where their sweet spot is. You want to get them in and get them, eating at the meals all the time that you're feeding them. So
yes.
So, Chris, there are a lot of really small companies that sort of think, well, I don't really need an e-commerce site because I'm doing things on social media, right? I'm selling stuff on Facebook or wherever it might be. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What do you think is the real relationship between social media and e-commerce?
It doesn't make sense to me either, because what you look at is what's happening in social media. When you're marketing, when you're advertising, you're always looking to find your customers when they're their most receptive. And in social media, people are playing games, they're talking, they're watching videos, they're sharing, graphics, whatever they're doing, they're having fun. They're socializing. They do not like to be advertised to. It's like when you're watching a YouTube video and you're really enjoying it, and all of a sudden, boom, advertisement. Ugh. So this is a reason why the conversion rates are so low with Facebook marketing in that respect, and why they're actually so expensive is because I believe personally that Facebook has to charge a lot of money because the advertisers doesn't develop a lot of revenue, so they have to charge a lot of money for it. But it's the wrong place at the wrong time. The thing that you want to do in some place like Facebook, or someplace like, the other social platforms, Instagram, whatever you're using, your blog, is you want to answer people's questions. Okay, I talked earlier about keywords. There are two types of keywords, Carl, two major types. There's 8 different kinds of keywords, but two major types: commercial, non-commercial. Commercial keywords describe a physical product, coffee maker. A non-commercial keyword would be something like how to roast coffee beans. That's a question that people are asking. The non-commercial keywords belong in social media, because you can say, hey, you find that how to roast coffee beans is a good keyword. Then you write a social post about that, or a blog post, or anything else that you're going to do. And you say, hey, here's how you roast coffee beans. People will gravitate to that. So the way to use that is to then, inject a link into that material leading to your website. Want to find out more about roasting coffee beans? Want to see the best coffee makers, for, home roasted beans? That's how you use that. You don't get in people's faces and jam an ad up their nose and say, hey, you were having fun, weren't you? But not anymore.
Yeah.
So
it's a doorway,
yeah.
more than anything else. It's a doorway to your actual e-commerce site, because that's where you actually sell stuff.
Yeah. Yes, and people do ask questions. People are looking for information in social media. So if you have a Facebook post that's ranked, that you can rank on a certain non-commercial keyword, people will find it. They'll respond to it. They'll comment on it. You'll build your social presence that way. Be helpful, not pushy.
So you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, that there have been a lot of people that have started e-commerce businesses, put a site up, whatever it may be, and they fail miserably. Why is that?
That is the incredible amount of bad information that they find out there. I talked earlier about the big platforms not expecting you to succeed. The people that are out there all over YouTube pushing these, programs, these systems, these tools, all this stuff, they don't want you to succeed, because then they can't keep selling you more things. Okay, so they'll hit you for $5,000 and tell you you'll make 50 grand on Amazon in a month, which you won't. But they'll give you incomplete information, specifically, purposefully incomplete information, so that when you get to the end of that and you go, this doesn't work, they say, oh, you don't have the platinum program. That's why. That's another 5,000. And then when that doesn't work, which is not designed to, oh, you know what? You're just not good enough you need a coach. That's 15,000. And those are real numbers. Yeah. I talk to people every day. I mean, I've been teaching for years, and I talk to people every day. I lost my house. I lost my retirement account. I put 35 grand into this, into that. That's mostly why people fail, is because they expect to find free information out there, or they expect to pay for something that's not as expensive as maybe it needs to be. And they think that's going to solve all their problems. Unfortunately, there are far too many predators on the internet in this space. And if you want to see, and actually in the book, Carl, I've actually got examples of Federal Trade Commission and state lawsuits that were filed against a lot of these people for doing exactly that.
That was a good read. Little heads up to know. So, Chris, the last question for today here. Marketing is a big part of e-commerce success. Just sort of all the things we've been talking about, getting the word out through a lot of different mediums and ways that are the right ways. What are call them the marketing basics that an e-commerce business needs to be sure to master as soon as possible?
The first thing is going to be content marketing. It's very, very important to understand how to create content so that a search engine will appreciate it. Because if you do that wrong, when you first launch a website, Google is going to come around and index that site. Okay, they're going to read everything on the site. They're going to say, does this make sense? Does it not make sense? Making sense means that all of the words and phrases on the site, in all of the written places, product descriptions, category descriptions, articles, everything, it all has to belong to the same group of keywords that all reference the same thing. So learning how to create that content in a way that Google reads it and understands it is critical. Because if you get a bad indexing, unfortunately, Google weights negative indexings far more heavily than positive indexings. So just making up numbers off the top of my head, this isn't real, but let's say a positive indexing, meaning Google comes around and says, hey, we understand this. It makes sense. We'll come back and look at it again. That's plus 1 point. Okay. If you get a negative ranking where Google says, what in the world are these people doing? We have no clue. That's a negative indexing. Call that negative 250 points. Okay. And the more you get negative indexings, the less you're going to rank. And that happens very quickly. So understand how to create content first. Understand where you are. If you're a mid-sized to large company, if you have diverse product offerings, understand that you're most likely going to spend a lot more money advertising because you can't rank naturally in the search engines. But that doesn't mean that you give up on the content creation. Content creation has to be really, really done well. Make sure you have the social media platforms in place. Blog. Okay, a blog is very important, but you don't want to overdo it because Google's Penguin algorithm also looks at something called content stuffing. If they see you coming out there every day with a blog post and a whole bunch of social media stuff and just jamming it out there on the internet, they don't see that as organic growth. They want what looks to them like human-based organic growth of an idea, a concept, a website. To them, that's real knowledge being developed. When you're slamming out blog posts every day and are in social media every day, that looks to them like you're trying to fool them. And once again, you trip over the Penguin algorithm and then you're out.
Yeah.
You'll never get ranked.
Well, hey, this has been some great information. Tell us again about the book, Chris, because it sounds like this is something that I might want to recommend to a few of my friends.
Well, the book basically is out there, Carl, because there is so much bad information, and it's all pretty much set up in the same way. It's basically roping people into a scam, and that hasn't changed in I don't know how long. Okay. So the book is free. There's no catch. I'm just, after 30 years in this business, I am so sick and tired of listening to how badly people have gotten cheated and burned and stolen from in this business, that the book was just something I had to do. So it's at chrismalta.com. It's free. And I hope you read it because it will definitely, if nothing else, it can save people thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands.
Sounds like a good plan. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today on the Connected Enterprise. We'll try to check back with you if we've got some questions in the near future. So
thanks, Carl.
Yep. And for everyone else, till we meet again, stay connected.